What's up, guys? So in this video, I wanted to actually do this video a long time ago. I've had the car for about 2 months, but basically it's complaining about the process of buying this Mach-E and what a horrible, it was a pretty bad experience, honestly. So I wanted to create this video to tell you guys like my experience, and hopefully Ford's gonna get their process down to make it better, because I think they should skip the dealership altogether, because it's horrible. It really is. But yeah, so in this video I'm gonna tell you about that, and there's 5 reasons why this experience of buying the Mach-E was horrible. So stay tuned. Hey guys, so the first reason that the experience was bad was availability. So they're basically copying Tesla's like whole procedure, where it's basically you reserve the car online, then they send you information about like, hey, your car is being made, it's being shipped, and then we're gonna ship it to the dealership of your choosing. And that's, I think, one of the problems too is just the whole dealership process. It's still there, which is just really unfortunate. But anyways, so the availability is the issue here, because when you reserve this, it's anywhere from like, oh God, it's like 3 to 6 months to get your car. And yeah, I understand right now that the chip shortage is causing a lot of issues, and I strongly believe that's the reason it's taking so long. But there's a way kind of around that too. So I reserved my Mach-E, and after I reserved it, I was like, well, I don't really want to wait 3 to 6 months. And the reason was because my F-150 was coming out of lease, and I had so much equity in it because of this whole COVID and yada yada, and there's no new vehicles like kind of in dealership lots due to chip shortage. Well, I had so much equity, so I was like, I need to buy my lease, sell my truck immediately, get that equity, and then I need another car. So what I did is I called around to like 5 different dealerships, and I was like, hey, I reserved this Mach-E, it's red, premium, all-wheel drive, extended range, black interior. Do you have this configuration? And most of them were like, oh yeah, like we do, but we're selling it for $10,000 over MSRP. Well, I was like, okay, so I called the next dealership. They're like, no, we don't have one, or no, we don't have one, this and that. So about a week went by, and then a dealership in Denver, Centennial actually, called me and was like, hey, we have this exact one. The customer could not afford the $700 payment, whatever it was. They rejected the delivery, and it's just sitting here. So if you can come today, you can have it. And I was like, oh my God, like I will come right after work and sign all the papers, yada yada. So the issue was that it's like it's kind of like a double-edged sword. You're just waiting so long for this car to get delivered because of reasons. And then the other issue is the availability at the dealership lot. There is none, which is kind of sad. And when they have Mach-E's on the dealership lots, they're actually called mannequins. So Ford says, hey, you can't sell this vehicle within, I think, 4 months or 4,000 miles, because Ford wants all these customers to come in, test drive, and then reserve it online, which I can understand. But the issue really was when you're calling these dealerships, they're saying, oh yeah, we have this red Mach-E for you and it's available. And I'm like, hey, is this a mannequin? And they're like, no, I don't know what that is. And I was like, okay. And they're like, no, it's fine. And I was like, can you just please be sure, because every dealership I've called said this is a mannequin, we can't sell it before yada yada. So they're like, well, let me call my manager and I'll call you back. They call me back and it's like, oh yeah, it's a mannequin. You can test drive, but you can't reserve it. And I was like, all right, I've already drove multiple Mach-E's. I'm okay with that. So kind of good luck with trying to find one if you're impatient like me at a dealership. You really have to call around and kind of get on their list. And once one gets rejected, they'll call you and then you can buy it immediately. So number 2 is the markups and how high demand this car is ridiculous. Like, I understand it's a very cool car. Like, I was so excited when they debuted it, and I was like, I was really excited to buy it. But anyways, because of that, now we're getting a crazy large amount of markups, and it's ridiculous. Ford, I think, needs to control that situation better, because just comparing it to Tesla's model, you buy the Tesla for 55 grand, whatever you reserved it for online. You're not going to get markups once it's delivered to the Tesla center, and then they're handing you the key and they're like, oh, by the way, there's a $10,000 markup. But for Ford, that's actually the case. So they're in such high demand, and these dealerships aren't making money on this, and I'm going to get into that. But since they're not making money on it, they're like, hey, how can we screw over the customer and mark up the Mach-E price so we can make even more profit? And they do this with a lot of different cars, like usually when they're like special edition ones. But it's ridiculous at the point where it's not exactly fair to regular consumers who are not even happy paying MSRP, which I'm that one. And the only reason I paid MSRP is because it's just a great value. EVs, no maintenance, basically. Well, in 100,000 miles, I have $60 worth of maintenance, so that's nothing. And then the next thing was there's no fuel costs. Like right now, I'm averaging about $35 a month in electricity costs. Off peak hours, don't get me wrong, it's different with on peak hours, I guess it's called. But anyways, so, and I drive 17,000 miles a year, so that's a huge savings versus my truck. I was paying, $3.60 a gallon and paying like $400 a month. So yeah. But anyways, the markups are outrageous. Calling all these dealerships, they're like, yeah, we have your car. And I'm like, oh, is it the $56,400, whatever MSRP is? And they're like, no, it's actually close to 70. We have a $15,000 markup. And I'm like, what? So anyways, you're kind of like dancing around the dealership, because the dealership still has control over the price, which I think is absolutely wrong. It's stupid. So the third reason that this whole process sucks is that you need to go into a dealership and be the expert on that vehicle. Weird, right? Usually the salesman sells you the car. Going into a dealership for an F-150, you're like, oh, I don't know what I want, whatever. Dealership is going to push you to the most expensive truck, and they're going to teach you everything about that truck and why you need this Lariat versus the XLT because it has heated seats or it has smart cruise control or whatever. They're selling you that product. They want to make a commission. And that's the problem, is the commission. So on the Mach-E, you buy it online. Sorta. It's a weird hybrid system. Basically, you reserve it online, but you still have to pick it up and purchase it from the dealership. And the dealership, you're paying MSRP if you can, when you reserve one and it's ready for delivery. So you're paying MSRP, but the dealership does not get a huge commission off of that. So like that F-150, they might make, $1,000 commission if they sell you a Platinum versus Lariat. I don't know, something along those lines. Well, with this car, you're paying MSRP and they only are getting paid to do the paperwork. And the paperwork is like $600, $700. So they're really, and that's not like the salesman does not make that from what I understand. It's actually like they have to split it amongst, you know, finance guy and all that. So the salesman might make only $100, let's just say, because they're really not doing too much. They drive you around in the car and then you sign the papers. They're not doing the work of trying to upgrade you to a new, better trim. And they're not trying to, just add weird stuff to it, you know, to get the costs up, because their commission is based off of that. So what I'm trying to get to is you're the expert of this vehicle. They have zero incentive to sell you this car because it's no strings off their back, really. So when you walk in there, at least from my experience, the saleswoman didn't even know anything about this car. Didn't even know about the new Sync 4 system. Couldn't tell me anything. Didn't even know how to like unlock the car because there's no handles, you know, it's just the push button. She didn't know anything. And when I was doing the test drive, we were talking and she's like, you're way more of an expert than me on this vehicle. And I was like, yeah, I've been waiting for this for a while and I've read the owner's manual and all this stuff. And she's like, yeah, I don't know like anything about this vehicle, and we don't really care to learn either. And which I thought was basically inappropriate to say, you know, just basically saying like, well, because I don't make money, I don't care for you or the car or anything, so whatever. Anyways, so I think it's great that the commission is not a factor because they're not trying to haggle price and crap like that with you. But also it's kind of, I'd assume, rude because you're not even an expert on that vehicle and you're selling it to me and I have to do all the legwork. I just think it's kind of unprofessional of the saleswoman and stuff. And she was, I read on the forums through some like salesman forums and stuff saying like they do have a class, I think it is, to teach the salesmen and women about this car so they can like show their customers. But again, like the people went through the class, some of them, but then it's not required, I heard as well, and you can opt out of it. So there's no incentive to even learn about the vehicle because they're not making money, and then it's not a requirement for a class. So yeah, it's like, all right, go in there absolutely knowing everything about the vehicle. That's not right, I don't think. So number 4 is, it's correlated with number 3 because since they're not making money on this, they're trying to do what they can to make money. So if it's not markups, it's hidden fees. And this is really crappy because it happened to me too. So before I was going to downtown Denver to pick up this vehicle, sign papers, yada yada, I told the saleswoman, I was like, can you please give me all the figures, like basically out the door price and all the fees before I get there. And so she was sending me paperwork and she's like, you know, we have a doc fee, we have a paperwork fee, we have a this fee, that fee, yada, 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 lots of fees. And then at the end, it came to like the MSRP was not MSRP anymore. With all the fees, it was like $2,000 extra, something like that. So I was talking to her and I'm like, well, what's this fee and what's this fee? So one of the fee was a random like dealership fee, $1,000. She was like, well, it's basically just a fee for like the paperwork. And I was like, well, the next line is a paperwork fee, which was like the $600 or $700 that they actually get. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. So she couldn't answer the question. She called me back and she's like, we're going to waive the $1,000 fee. And I was like, oh, really? Just out of the bat? She's like, yeah, we'll just waive it for you because we want returning customers. You know, obviously that's a BS story. I just caught them with all the crappy fees that they're doing. So there was that fee. The next one was like locking lug nuts. and they wanted to charge me $1,000 for locking lug nuts. So I told her, I was like, can you please, before I get there, can you make sure the locking lug nuts are off my vehicle and you put on just a regular lug nut? She's like, oh, we can't do that. It's already on the vehicle. I was like, well, yeah, I'm asking you to take it off. I don't want locking lug nuts. From what I read, they don't even stop people from stealing your wheels anyways. Whatever. I basically Googled how much locking lug nuts were, and it was like $50. So I was like, all right, I can put them on in the future. Well, like, we had to go back and forth so many times because I said I do not want to pay $1,000 for that. So what she did, she's like, absolutely, I cannot take it off, but we're going to lower it to $100. I was like, holy moly, you're taking $900 off of this fee? That is a requirement? Okay, whatever. Again, just like the last fee, I caught them with their tails between their leg. So, as you can see, I was pretty upset buying this vehicle. Like, it was supposed to be all exciting, but it really wasn't. Still love the car, hate the process. But anyways, so we got it back down to like $100 for the lug nuts. Well, I'm kind of glad I waited to do this video for this, because just a week ago, the lug nuts came in the mail. Now, if you remember, they were already installed on the vehicle, and I personally did not even look. That was just me being dumb. I did not look to see if they were even installed. Well, they weren't. When I saw them that they were in the mail, I looked on the vehicle and I was like, holy moly, I just got screwed over. But what are you gonna do? So what was kind of like a slap in the face too is the lug nuts came just in a regular Ford packaging. But they came with like a personalized note from the dealership saying like, hey, for a small fee, we can put these on your vehicle for you. And I'm like, technically I already paid you $100 for you to install it, and you refuse to remove it from the vehicle. Like, anyways, I was like, whatever. So the hidden fees is just outrageous. So that leads me to the finance guy. Of course, he needs to make money. On top of his hourly ridiculous salary. I heard they make a lot of money. Like 6 figures or something like that. Anyway, so of course he wants even more money, more commission, whatever. So he's like, hey, just so you know, you need a maintenance package on this car. And I was like, oh, on an EV? And he's like, yeah, they need just as much maintenance as a normal car. It's ridiculous. And then he was kind of going off on a tangent saying, you know, people think EVs are so, you know, less maintenance and this and that, and they're wrong. And I was like, oh, really? I was like, because I only need, well, actually, okay, let me stop there. He said that, and then he was like, do you want the maintenance package? And I was like, oh, no, thank you. And he's like, you didn't even hear the price yet. And he was kind of getting snippy. And I said, well, no, I'm okay. EVs have literally zero maintenance. But I was like, just because I noticed like his energy coming off he was getting pretty pissed. I'm not going to lie. So I was like, okay, well, to calm the situation, I was like, yeah, okay, what's the price? He's like, hey, for $2,000, we'll throw in a maintenance package. He's like, that's most likely going to save you like $4,000 in the future on maintenance. And I was like, holy moly. And I literally said that, and he was taken back. And he's like, oh, is that a little bit too much? He's like, what if I come down a little bit? And I was like, no, just, you know, I looked up the manual before I got here to make sure like how often I need to do maintenance. And it's very seldom. He's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, yeah, you know, every 10,000 miles, it's a tire rotation. And every 20,000 miles, it's a $10 air filter, cabin air filter. And he's like, no, it's not. So we started getting mad again. And I was like, no, but really? So he actually looked it up, literally looked it up on the Ford website, because I told him, like, this is not right. Well, when he looked it up, he was like, Oh, all right. So he dropped it, and then we immediately went into the warranty, extra extended warranty. You know, they always have to get you on an extended warranty. And he's like, he starts off like, do you know how expensive this car is? I was like, well, yeah, $56,000. Like, that's what I'm signing the papers. He's like, yeah, so you're definitely gonna want a warranty, because if anything goes wrong, there's no way you're gonna be able to pay out of pocket for these issues, which I thought was like kind of rude to actually say. Like, dude, you don't know my finances, first of all. Like, how do you know I wouldn't be able to? But anyways, and he was saying like, you need to get an extended warranty. And basically the extended warranty, again, with his anger, I was like, just give me the price. What's the extended warranty terms? Let's go from there. Well, he's like, well, you know, the normal warranty is blah, 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 blah. And he's like, but this extended warranty, we're going to do bumper to bumper for 100,000 miles. So you don't have to worry about anything. If anything goes wrong, like this touch screen, he was like, this one is $4,200 to replace if it goes bad. I was like, okay, I understand. He's like, all that's going to be fixed. And I was like, okay, well, what's the price? Just humoring him. I already know the warranty's great on this, so I wanted to humor him. He's like, for $4,000, you'll get bumper to bumper up to 100,000. And I literally laughed. And it really enraged him. At this point, he was like not having it whatsoever. And I was like, $4,000 is a lot of money for bumper to bumper. And he's like, well, yeah, but it's still a warranty. And I'm like, yeah, but the only thing I'm worried about is the battery. I was like, yes, it's a good battery, but it could crap out one day, whatever. But I told him, I was like, Ford has an 8-year, 100,000 mile warranty on the battery. And I'm like, I'm never gonna hit that. I probably would get rid of the car, back then I thought, before 100,000 miles. Now I'm obsessed with the car, so I could see myself going over 100,000. But I'm like, you know, for 8 years, 100,000, that would tell me like, yeah, I got a good battery, no issues if degradation is minimal. And I'm telling him this, and I'm like, besides that, you got an awesome electronics warranty, and the bumper to bumper is still, I think, 3-year, 36,000 mile. And I'm like, after that point, you know, if you have a non-faulty board and this, you know, touch screen and stuff like that, you should know. Well, he got really mad because I didn't accept his $4,000 cost. And I was like, well, what would it add to my monthly payment? And he was like, yeah, it was between, I don't remember, but like fully, it was between $100 and $200 extra on top of the $700 that I'm paying already. And I'm like, that's ridiculous, just for a warranty. So I respectfully said, no, I'm just going to decline it and go from there. And he was not happy about that whatsoever. I think he's used to getting his way with other customers and me shooting him down royally. He became very unprofessional at this point. Wouldn't even look at me, when it basically was just saying yes and no, and that's it. So this goes into my next and final issue, which was number 5, is they do not know the Ford options plan. So I think Ford created this options plan specifically for the Mach-E, or at least it debuted the exact same time as the Mach-E. And all it is it's a hybrid of a lease and finance plan. And this is what I did. And it's basically, you get the lease terms for like 48 months, whatever, 36, 48 months. You're paying lower in payments, but at the end, you have this balloon payment, and that balloon payment for me specifically is like $20,000. So you can either get rid of the car, give it back to Ford with no strings attached as long as you didn't go over miles, or you can buy the car and just finance the $20K. So it's kind of nice too, because the biggest benefit is with this Ford options plan, you can take the federal tax and state tax rebates for an EV at the end of the year. For leasing, you cannot do that. And then for financing, you can do that, but then you're also financing the full $56,000. And then for me, being a brand new model, brand new EV, like Ford's first like long range EV, I thought in my head, worst case scenario, if this car craps out on me and just won't start at the end of the Ford options plan, I can just give it back to them and it'll be a dead car and they have to take it no matter what. So I'm like, hey, you know what? It saves me. And then I did the math too, like doing Ford options plan for the 3-4 years and then financing the $20,000 at the end. And I did Ford options versus just financing for the 5-6 years. And it came out to literally like within $500. So I thought, okay, well, Ford options plan is the way to go because it's always a what if scenario. Well, the thing is this finance guy, the salesman, the saleswoman, the entire Ford dealership did not know what Ford options plan was. So initially, like I said, when me and the saleswoman were texting back and forth about the total cost of the vehicle, when we were going through that, she kept showing me the paperwork under lease. And I was like, hey, ma'am, this is not a lease, it's Ford options plan. And she's like, what's Ford options plan? And I spelled it out for her. And it's on like Ford's main page. I sent them links to Ford's actual homepage. And it says, hey, Mach-E, Ford options plan. And it spelled everything out. Well, I kept sending her that, and she's like, oh, the second or third time, she's like, oh, don't worry. We know what that is now. We're good to go. Here's the information. And so I told her, okay, that's great. And I was like, can you make sure that the finance guy knows I'm doing Ford options plan and not a lease? I was like, you know, the final paperwork right before I started driving out there, it still said lease on it, and it was like a 48-month lease. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. So, and she verified, she's like, the finance guy knows exactly what you're talking about. Don't worry, as soon as you sit down, it'll take 5 minutes to go through this options plan and we're done. I get in there to finally buy the Mach-E, and guess what paperwork he put right in front of me? A lease. And I was like, no. I was like, did you talk to the saleswoman? And she's like, yeah, he was like, she was really adamant that you wanted this options plan. And I was looking over it, and it's the same exact thing as a lease. So I'm just going to draw up a lease. And I was like, no, not at all. Like, this is not a lease. And he's like, what do you mean? So I explained about the rebate at the end of the year. And he's like, oh, well, that makes sense. He's like, well, you got like excellent credit. Do you want to just finance? And I was like, no, I'm doing this options plan just in case the Mach-E craps out on me. And he's like, oh, okay. And he was kind of mad because he didn't know of this paperwork. So he called his supervisor, like in Detroit, and of course the guy didn't answer. So he's like, honestly, I have to send you home because I don't have the paperwork of this options plan and all this stuff. And I was like, come on. And then the saleswoman, it was the end of the month, so she was really mad. She's like kind of getting mad at the finance guy, saying, you knew what this was and you still told him to come down, and he wanted this options plan and you're not giving it to him. And I was like kind of happy that the saleswoman was helping me out. So anyways, so they sent me home, and then I told them, hey, I'll come down the next day to buy the car if you can get the Ford options plan. Well, he finally actually did, but this was after we had that like kind of altercation where I didn't buy his maintenance plans. So when I got in there, he didn't even say hi to me. He's like, this is what you need to sign. And it was all on a tablet, and I'm like reading through it because he's not explaining anything to me whatsoever. Nothing. So I was reading through it because I want to read what I'm signing. And he's like, oh, don't worry. It's just this. It's just this. Yeah, just sign at the bottom, like with this attitude and tone. I'm like, what the heck? Just because I didn't fall for your scummy little crap? Really? So I'm reading through it, and all the paperwork looked good. Basically looked like a lease, but at the end there's a balloon payment, and it was like $19,000 or $20,000. And then it says like you can either give us the car back, or you can finance that $20,000 and keep the car. So I did that, and basically he gave me the paperwork, gave me the key. They didn't even show me where the car was or anything. They just gave me the key and was like, there you go, bye. And I'm like, this is so unprofessional, completely 100% unprofessional. So when I got into the car, I finally found it, and they didn't show me anything, how to work anything. So this car is very like techie. So it took me an hour. I was in the parking lot just going through all the different settings, and after I did all the configurations that I liked, I just left. And the saleswoman in the dealership kept calling me nonstop after this, like, hey, we noticed you didn't give us a survey. If there's anything wrong, please let us know. And I declined the survey because the saleswoman did a good job, but the finance guy did not. And saleswoman told me, like, if you give me anything but 5-star, or give the survey anything but 5-star, it's gonna look bad on me. And she told me this during the test drive. And I felt bad because at the end she was like really nice and trying to like help me out. And I was like, well, I want to give her a good review, but I don't want to give the finance guy. So altogether, I just declined it because they combined the finance guy plus the saleswoman into the same X amount of stars. So, but they just kept calling me nonstop. She was messaging me nonstop about like, why aren't you doing this review? And I was just ignoring it because I also didn't want, you know what? I was just so exhausted of this whole entire thing. I just did not want to deal with it anymore. So I just ignored him. I know, it's wrong. Because I could have explained to her, like, hey, that finance guy was severely unprofessional. I hated him. I hated the whole process because of him, you know. But I decided against it. And now I'm happy with my car. So to end this video, for the future, I'm seeing that the Lightning has the same process where it's like you're gonna reserve it online, go through a dealership. Ford is saying that they're making like an EV Ranger, they're making an EV Explorer, they're basically every vehicle that model that they have, they're making an EV, and they're doing this like reservation, like buying it online. I think they should pick up kind of Tesla's whole process, and it's just way more convenient where you pick up the vehicle for the price you want to pay that's listed when you reserve the vehicle, and then you go in there and the saleswoman just shows you for an hour or however long it's going to take, like all the features of the car, and then gives you the key, and then you just drive off. Simple as that. Just do an online paperwork. I didn't even need to go into the dealership because the guy gave me a tablet that had the Ford options plan on there, and he just, it's all electronic signature. I just signed it and then clicked each box to where to sign, and done. It was literally in and out in 5 minutes once they got the paperwork right. Why can't I just do that online? It makes sense. I didn't even have to talk to a saleswoman. Didn't have to go through the BS, paying $1,000, you know, now it's $100 for the lug nuts, paying the dealership fee that was $1,000, which shouldn't have been there, and got that taken off. So it doesn't make sense. But anyways, guys, thank you again for watching. I really appreciate it. If you could do me a favor and like this video, and if you like it enough, could you please subscribe? That'd be absolutely amazing. It's great to see all the comments that I'm getting, and it's nice to see actually Mach-E owners are commenting on my videos too, and we're going back and forth about what we like and dislike, and it's great to see, and I love it. So if you guys could do that, I'd really appreciate it. All right, until next time, guys. Bye.